Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Power BI Zoom Factor Bootcamp for the part 2. In part 1, we quickly went through the overall rules of the Power BI Power presentation contest, where also you can enter for a 10,000 euro prize. And we started to grasp upon the power of Power BI over Excel. And in this presentation, Aivis Pavlovs from ZoomCharts will introduce you to ZoomCharts, which means that when you have large amounts of data, not so technically advanced users might get lost in the data by not being able to extract the insights. But with ZoomCharts, you can get insights if you configure it correctly with the tap of a button. But few notes before we start is that I remind you that you can ask questions. So click on the Q&A and enter your question during the presentation time, and we will go through the questions. Some of the questions will be answered by the moderators team, and some of the questions I will forward right to Aivis after the presentation. And yes, the presentations will be recorded and will be published tomorrow. So check your links on the platform and the messages on the platform and email. Don't miss the presentations tomorrow. So without further ado, Aivis, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Davis. So just checking if the screen is live. Just making sure. Perfect. All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Aivis. I'm a technical sales engineer here at ZoomCharts. And the main topic and kind of the idea about this session is to quickly go through what ZoomCharts offers, what kind of visuals do we have, and also have a brief explanation about each and every one of them to kind of understand what are the particular use cases for each of them. So right now you can see I have opened up our webpage, and first thing I just wanted to show you here is that we've been working with Microsoft for a little bit over 2 years now. During that time, we have developed more visuals, but currently available are 8 of them. So here you can see the donut visual, combo, time series, network, graph, waterfall, combo bar, and also a pie chart. And we're also working on many other different visuals. So for example, the next in the pipeline are scattle and bubble charts, multiple time series visuals, and also map charts. Of course, as a side project, we always do some sort of custom visual development. Those could be either something to be let's say, more generic case, or it could be really specific case that's, just for your organization that nobody really has a use case for. But we do take these kind of tasks and we provide custom visuals as a service. All right, let's switch back to the next one. So since I'm going to cover everything relatively fast, I just wanted to point out, and don't forget, guys, that every single visual itself is going to have a separate session. So today I'm just going to briefly cover them so you understand what's really happening, what kind of options do you have. And afterwards, throughout these 2 weeks, we have separate sessions for each of the visuals where we would go, let's say, deep dive already into one specific visual and tell you more about the formatting options, the initial setup, the features, the interactions, and these kind of things. All right. So the first one would be the donut visual. Now, there are a lot of people who still, are divided into 2 groups. There are people who love donut visuals, and then there's the group that don't really want to use donuts or pie charts whatsoever in any reports. The main reasons for this is, I would say, first is a complete misuse of the donut visuals and pies in general. You see some really weird cases where it just doesn't make any sense. To avoid these cases, what we did is we have some already, preset values and formatting options just to make sure that the donut, at least the initial one, has something to say. So by default, what you can see with our donuts happening is it's always going to be in a descending order. So starting from the highest value slice going downwards. And there are a couple of other features that we added to the visual, which just makes it easy to use and navigate through. So one of these things I'm going to quickly go into focus mode is you can see this inner white line going throughout the donut visual. Now, what that really indicates is that this visual has a drill down level available. And here on the right side, you can see that this visual has 3 drill down levels. So if I click on classical cars, you can still see the white line. If I go down to the 3rd level, the white line has disappeared. So this is something that you can tell to your users, for navigational purposes. So they actually know that this visual has more underlying data within it. Now, the next thing you can notice probably is this inner donut. What the inner donut represents is the actual it actually represents the previously selected values and the previously selected slices. If you look at the colors, what the visual does, it makes sure that the slices that you have within it are in the exact same colors that were previously selected. To kind of showcase this again, let's go here and let's say, for example, I choose vintage cars. You can see that this is the color that's being represented in. If I choose EMEA, I can see the orange slice right here. So it's really easy and intuitive to navigate through the visual. And it also helps you to understand, where if something else has been prior to filtered out by other users, especially when you're presenting the data. This just helps your users to understand where exactly is he located right now. Another thing that we added for the donut visual, just a quick overview, is this other slice. Now, to comparison, sure, you can do this with the native visuals. You can create, some groups or something like that. But the added benefit of using the other slice within the donut visual is that it's a controllable setting. So in the formatting options, we can enable or disable it, of course. And once we enable it, I can define exactly how many slices I want into each category. So just as an example, let's say I only want to see 2 slices. You can see everything else is combined into this others group. Now, what happens if I click on the others, it opens up me the next 2 contributors. And one thing also happening right here is you can see that others and previous are grayed out, and that's done intentionally. The main reason for that is because this kind of navigation helps you to focus on what's relevant right now. So, because let's just, for example, turn off the other slice. Let's say in the same scenario, I could say, okay, so let's now focus on the 3rd and 4th slice. Okay, I can visually count it, easy, right? But trust me, at one point, the users are just going to start to get lost because every single color that is in the background, it's still, calling for the user to pay attention at some point. So it's easy to get distracted within the visual itself. Regarding some other features that the visual has, let's go back here, change this back to 3. Let's go out. So also one specific thing that our visuals do is they act as a slicer. So for example, if I click on classical cars, you can see that this is being now passed as a filter. If I choose one specific region, let's choose, for example, EMEA, you can see that this is now being used as a combinational filter. So the data is only showcasing me classical cars, EMEA. If I choose, for example, France now, I've filtered out only the cities in France. So this is one of the examples of the navigation that we want to introduce for the Power BI users. We want them to have the ability to interact with the charts directly instead of using slicers, drop-downs, checkboxes, or anything like that. Because remember, it's sure, you can achieve the same with the slicers, right? But imagine if you have to work also on tablets and phones. Having these slicers that are relatively small, trying to tap on them, select the right boxes, trust me, you're gonna get annoyed at one point. So yeah, clicking on the slices filters the data. In case, for example, you want to select the slice, sorry. In case you want to select the slice and filter out the category without drilling down into it, you can long press, or if you want to select multiple slices, you can hold down Control and click on multiple slices. So there are different options available for you as a user. Also, a quick tip is this info button is for visuals when you haven't really removed it initially, but what it really serves for is this is a quick way for you as a developer to get more information on it. Because you're going to open up the guided learnings that includes the documentation, the features, some gallery samples, and these kind of things that really help you to kind of get familiar with the visual. And also through these links, it's easy access to reach out to our support team in case you have some additional features you want to develop, if you want to report a bug or anything like that. So for report creators, this is just a quick and easy access to our team. All right, enough about the donut. The next would be combo. So the combo visual has actually one more really similar visual, and it's called the combo bar visual. So the combo visual is for vertical columns, whereas the combo bar, as the name already implies, is going to be for bars. Pretty simple, right? When I'm going to talk about the formatting options, both of them have the same formatting options. It's just that some of the names could be changed because, in one example, for example, let's say x-axis, for example, in this case, is on the left side. So the other option is going to be on the right. For the column chart, it's going to be, for example, top and bottom, these kind of things. Let's go back to the main report. And for the combo visual, why is the really name called the combo visual? It's because the combo visual has a slightly different approach than what the native visuals have. So the kind of path that we have taken is we want to offer the user to have as much flexibility as possible. And what that inclines is that you still have that pretty similar and easy setup, at least initially. You just drag in different categories. We can actually really quickly make a sample just to kind of go through it, right? So I'm going to increase it. So right here, I'm going to choose my product line. Come on, work with me. Thank God. So product line, sales rep, and I'm going to add one series. So as quick as that, I created my first visual. And it has 2 drill down levels. So once I click on it, I go down to a lower level. Now, what the really combinational comes in is when I add the second series. So the second series I'm going to add is going to be total sales, for example. And this is kind of a default view. So by default, each of the series that you add is going to be represented as a column, but you can customize it afterwards. So for example, if I open up the formatting options now, and I go a little bit lower, you can see that I have these series configurations. And for each series that I add, it's going to have a separate tab. And the added benefit of this customization is that once you open it up, you can actually see what kind of combinations are possible with this visual. So for example, for each of the series, I can choose whether it's a column, whether it's a line. Okay, now it's in the background, just going to change the display order. So it's in right now. Here you can see the line, or it's an area. So this is where you can already start to see the combinations coming in, right? With the visual itself, you have up to 25 different series. You have 3 different chart types, and you can really start to create these unique combinations of charts. But that's not it. You know, we thought about more customization, and there's a lot of unique visuals that aren't just really covered by the native ones or other, custom visuals out there in the marketplace. So for example, what you can even do is you can start to stack and cluster these columns as well on the same visual. So for example, what I can quickly do here is I can scroll down, and right here I have a setting called stack. All I need to do, just make sure that both series are using the same stack number. As easy as that, right? Just stacking one on top of each other. If you want to play around with some interesting kind of cases, you can also play around with this with percent. So let's say something like 50% and start to create these unique looking combinations. Now that's the real power of the combo visual. It really gives you one single visual with a lot of flexibility. Sure, in some cases, you're going to have to adapt the data a little bit more than with the native visuals, right? But that's kind of a, let's say, a trade-off that comes with it. A more flexibility with a little bit more work. It's just what it is. All right, for the combo visual, these are the main things. I'm going to go into specifics, like I said, in separate session. And for the combo visual, let's just quickly open it up. So the combo visual is going to be on Thursday. And this is going to be the session where we're going to deep dive into this specific visual. Now, after the combo visual, the next visual we're going to look into is going to be the time series visual. And this visual is similar to the combo visual. The main difference is that instead of using categorical data, this visual is meant for time and date-based information. And with that comes, different sort of formatting options that are really specific for the time series visual. So for example, if I open it up, some of the unique things that we do offer is we still offer the same series customization, but afterwards we have some specific settings that are for the time series visual. One of them is the interaction of the visual. So right here we have a setting called filter trigger, and it has 2 states. It's either only on selection or any action. The difference is in the navigation for the users afterwards. So for example, only on selection is the default one. So the default experience for your users is going to be, if for example, I choose November, you can see I drill down into more detailed view, but none of the KPIs were filtered out. So essentially, this gives you a way to kind of deep dive into that date information to get a smaller granularity, but you're not necessarily filtering out the data as you go. And for example, if I hover over the x-axis, you can see the cursor changes a little bit. And now I can select a custom time range. And this is now being passed as a selection, and this affects the filters on the report page. Now, another option that you can have with these interactions is if I switch to any action, and in this scenario, also a click on one of the time periods is going to go deeper, and you can see it filters out the KPIs. So just make sure, when you're making your own dashboards to kind of play around with these settings, see what makes more sense for you, and don't forget to kind of explain it in your videos as well. Some other features that the time series visual has is the ability to have different display units. So the smallest granularity of time we support right now is up, let's say, down to milliseconds. If you go on the time, on a date range, the highest we support right now is up to 5 years and even decades. And as you can see, in between, there are different custom time settings. And that's kind of one of the added benefits of using, a third-party custom visuals, is that we're using our own proprietary technology for these visuals. So any custom time periods that you might need, for example, 45 minutes, 7 minutes, or whatever kind of combinations that can actually be summed up as a value, we can create those for you so it suits your business use case and it makes sense for your users, and not to kind of stick with only those that we do offer. So that's one of these things. And a few more other things that I wanted to quickly cover here is going to be the toolbar. So the toolbar for the visuals, especially for the combo time series, and these kind of are the same. So the essential elements that you have there are a back button, which essentially takes you one step back in the navigation. The zoom out button takes you one step up in the hierarchy. So for example, if I go down from a monthly view to a daily view, by clicking zoom out, I'm going to go back to those monthly. If I click zoom out again, okay, I don't have it disabled here, but it would take me to a quarterly level. So essentially, you're just going up always one level in the hierarchy based on the selections that you have enabled here in the display units. A few more options that you have here are, for example, a quick lin and log scale switch. So quick access for your users to change between two scales. And one thing I wanted to point out about these settings right here that I'm showing is they're visual specific and they are meant for the moment when you are using the visual. Once you change it and, for example, save the report, these will not be saved as a selection. These are only meant there when you're using the visual to kind of have different states for it. All these settings afterwards, if you want to save them, need to be done through the formatting options. So for example, for the log scale, we go under primary y-axis and we enable right here logarithmic scale. So just, there are some technical nuances, let's call it like that, but the buttons right here are for the time when you are actually working with the visual. Now, something else we have here is, for example, a date period selection. So whether I'm looking at all the data that I have provided, whether it's last year, well, in my case, I don't really have data there, or last month. And this is going to go based on the selections that you do have there. Another thing that we have is also display unit, or let's call it granularity. And what this allows you to do is quickly transition between, different kind of detail models. So for example, right now I'm looking at a monthly level, but just by using a different option right here, I can make the chart to transition to a daily level. So this gives you and your users, that ability to kind of just play around with the visual, explore the data, which is something that we want to give to the users. Because previously, users are just typically, let's say, suited and comfortable with visuals that are almost static. What we want to give to them is that ability to move around the visual and have all these different options. And one uniqueness that a lot of our users really love about the ZoomCharts visuals is the ability to freely move around. And what I mean by that is, for example, if I hover over the chart, if I click and hold down the leftmost button, I can actually zoom out, for example, to a higher level. I can zoom in into more details. I can move the chart to the right, to the left. And the added benefit of this is, remember, for example, you can use these on a tablet or mobile device. So just pinch your fingers together or pan them out. And this is going to also give you that flexibility when it comes to the exploration of the data. All right, so time series visual we covered. Next one is going to be the network visual. So the network visual was the first edition of the NetChart family, let's call it like that. And the intention of this visual is to kind of give a really easy tool to display a network of connections between different categories. And the setup for it is relatively easy as well. I can actually remove these columns right here. And let's say all you have to do is you have a nodes bucket right here. And all I do is, let's, for example, go for regions. So I have my first 3 nodes or bubbles, and then I'm adding another category. Oh, missed it. There you go. And you can see the chart actually understands the correlation between them, and it understands which categories are connected to what. And just by, for example, just switching them around, it gives me a different view because it changes the node kind of formatting options. One particular kind of style and thing you need to remember about the network visual is that it's specifically designed and built for categorical data exploration, which means that if you want to customize one node in specific, that's not going to be available with the network visual. Because, for example, if I open up the formatting options, you can see that I have these category settings. And as soon as I try to change something here, let's just go with the easiest one, the node fill color, you can see it affects every single node that's under that category. So that's just something you need to keep in mind when it comes to the network visual. Other than that, it's pretty easy tool to use. You just drag in different nodes, you add a value that's going to create the measures for it. And then afterwards, you can use the visual either as a filter from which you filter out, or you can use different visuals to filter out the network. So for example, if I click, let's say on Paul Henriette, you can see that this is again being passed as a filter to the table that's right next to me. If I just do something a little bit different, let's go quickly change the table into a donut visual. I can use a different approach, right? I can choose, let's say, a EMEA region, and you can see it's going to filter out the nodes in the network. So you can have, essentially what I'm trying to say is, when building dashboards, don't be afraid to experiment and use multiple visuals on the same page. It really gives more intuitiveness to them when you make the path of exploration, that instead of just, for example, focusing on the network and then letting the user to kind of figure out what you want to do with it. Your job is to create a report that actually helps him to tell a story with all these visualizations that are available for you. All right. Now, the next one is going to be the graph visual. And the graph visual is the second addition to the network chart family. The difference between these two visuals is that whereas the network visual was specifically meant for categorical data exploration, the graph visual comes in with a different structure. So for the graph visual, you specifically define which nodes or bubbles, items, call them whatever you want to, are connected to what items. So this just has a slightly different data model that it supports, but because of this, it also gives you a lot more flexibility. And what it allows you to do is define different hierarchy levels. It allows you to define separate images for each of the nodes. It also allows you to create these bidirectional links. So for example, to have incoming and outgoing values. Let's just see quickly which data set I was using here. What I can quickly do here is, let's say, for example, right here, you can see link label numeric. And what I can do is, well, in this case, it's just going to be something relatively easy. I can add a value right here, go into the formatting options, just a little bit of fine tuning the formattings and everything. I'm going to make sure that multi-link spacing is higher, still overlaps. Let's make it 40. So just play around with the settings, make sure that everything you want to see there is available. And what this gives me is a quick overview and understanding of the incoming and outgoing values. All of the links can be categorized. They can have different colors. Nodes can be separated into groups. There's really a lot of flexibility when it comes to it. I'm going to go, deeper into it in a separate session. Let's just check when was the time. I forgot to do this for the other visuals. So the time series on the 25th of May, and the graph visual is going to be on the 27th of May. But if you have any questions prior, just reach out to our team and we'll help you in whatever way we can. So going back to the graph visual, and one thing I wanted to point out here that I kind of wanted to say and make sure that you don't get worried about it is, let me check which version. Okay, 1.6, yeah. So the difference between other visuals that are available there and other, for example, our visuals is the graph visual has a lot of different fields. In reality, the graph visual, the 1.6 version, has 27 different fields. So you can see where this flexibility comes in, right? You have a lot of data models, you have a lot of data available for you. And the reason why we added all these fields is because we not only wanted to create a visual that's easy to configure relatively, but we also wanted to give you an opportunity to define almost every single setting that you can through the data itself. So for example, in some cases, one team likes to work more on the formatting options of the visual. The other team is actually responsible for the data itself to make sure that all the right information is available wherever it's necessary. So these fields allow you to make sure that whenever you refresh the data set, and in case you change something, the chart is going to just accordingly adapt to it. So essentially make it as a live organism. Yeah. One other thing that I wanted to quickly showcase to you is
maybe the last one. And the last one, you're running out of time, Aivis.
Yeah, this is the last one. So a quick overview, for example, of how you can actually see all these visuals working together is when you have them on a single page, right? Because one of the things that we do support is and a feature called multi-level cross-chart filtering. It might sound really complicated, but it's not. What it really means is that you're able to filter out data with multiple visuals at the same time. So for example, what I can do here is I can choose USA as the country of my interest. Then I can choose, let's say, Marta Hernandez as my sales rep. And then I can choose a specific time period that's being filtered out here on the table. So that's the experience, like I said, that we're really after for. We want to give the report users the ability to just navigate and kind of explore the data that they do have available. And also this helps you to transition from the traditional way of reporting to a more, let's say, Q&A type of reporting style, where you can create the first initial overview with the visuals and then afterwards go into details regarding different aspects of it. Yeah, so if you have any questions, feel free to ask anything. If we're not going to be able to answer all of them, you have also other moderators channels, just reach out to them and we'll get back to you eventually.
Thank you, Aivis, for the live demo. I am used to reading static images and reports and websites, and I cannot imagine what power these interactive graphs might do in the bigger picture. Yes, please ask the questions on Q&A, but one short one from my side is how hard it is to prepare the data so that it works so flawlessly as in your demo, because in the part one, we talked about the data is there, but it's not used because it is hard to use. And this looks easy to use, but is it really?
I would say, as with any tool, there is some instruction or manual that comes with it. So you need to get more familiar with it. But to create a report like this, it doesn't really require a lot of knowledge. All you may need to make sure is that the data you want to explore is actually available for you, which in most cases is actually the biggest flaw. A lot of companies, have different perspectives that they want to explore or, search for something in like that, but they don't collect the data that's really supporting this statement. They're collecting some part of it, but they haven't really collected something that could be used as another dimension of filtering. But yeah, I would say, it's really not that difficult. One more thing I wanted to point out is that the report that I'm using right now is going to be a report that I'm going to add information as we go throughout these 2 weeks. And if you write down this link, so bit.ly.com/Power BI Zoom Factor, this is going to take. Yeah, sure.
I'm launching your screen live so that people can see it.
Okay.
Yes. Yes, it's
all right.
Now.
So you can see it. So bit.ly.com/Power BI Zoom Factor, and we can actually quickly open it up. So. Factor. Too many W's. I already have it entered here, and you can see this is going to be just a direct link to the report that I was just using during the session itself. And this is going to be something I'm going to update throughout the days with more information, more links to other reports, so you can essentially look at some of the examples that are already available for you, so you don't have to go through everything from scratch. And also the added benefit of it is you can see in every single page I try to add a little bit more information as to how to interact with the visual. So yeah.
Okay. Checking if one last question. Yes, there's a question. Where can I read about terms and conditions for using your visuals?
The terms and conditions are available in App Source. So if you go to the App Source, you open up one of the visuals, there is a separate tab that is the terms and conditions for the visuals. I think, let me just double check it. So I'm gonna quickly see. A moment, bear with me. I know it takes a bit of time, but it's there. So, opening it up. All right, sharing the screen. All right, so this is the official app source for Microsoft, where you can also download the visuals. And right here, you can see license agreement and privacy policy. So all the terms and conditions and all the rules applied with it can be read here. One thing I wanted to point out here is that unlike a lot of other different kind of visuals that are available in the app stores, all of our visuals that have been lately updated are Power BI security certified, which means that we have the security certification seal from Microsoft that our visuals are safe to use. We're not we're not collecting any data. We're not transferring any data anywhere. Everything you use is being aggregated within Power BI application itself. We, as a third party, never see what you're using the data for, or how is it really used, or anything like that. If you want to learn more about it, you can easily just type in Power BI security certification, and here you can read all the terms and conditions that apply for visuals to get security certified.
Okay, thank you, Aivis, very much. We're out of time, but don't be sad. Aivis will be back in later sessions throughout the bootcamp, so use his time to ask him questions throughout the day.